Alright guys, excuse the weird get up, I'm doing a workout. It's something I've been doing a lot recently and thinking about a lot recently, which is just trying to listen to my gut or my intuition, and just follow it. Like, I think there's a lot of conflicting kind of voices in our head, or impulses, or conflicting factors when we make decisions. And I decided recently, I don't remember why, to just start kind of trying to not only follow but kind of train my intuition. I wouldn't say it's, just do the first thing that comes into your head, because sometimes, particularly after years of like self-neglect or making bad choices or being addicted to certain things or developing bad habits, the first voice that comes into your head might be a negative one. But I think, whilst this might sound like a kind of a cliche or a bit hippie-ish or whatever, I think all of us kind of have in us some kind of internal compass that's kind of innate. You know the feeling when you meet someone and you just don't like them, and you don't know why, and you couldn't say why you don't like them, you couldn't say why you had a bad feeling about this person, but you just didn't like them. Something didn't feel right about an interaction. You go for a job interview, or you meet someone to discuss a project or something, and you just go, nah, this isn't good, this doesn't feel right. And so often you're right, and a lot of the time our kind of like thinking, analytical, intellectual brain, it has many uses, and is something that should also be utilized to the best of its abilities, but it very often gets things wrong, I think, by being overly literal about things and only looking at what you can see on the surface. But your intuition, I think, can kind of see beyond the surface. It can feel things often that are imperceptible. Like if you speak to someone and they say things, the words they say are correct, they say the right things, you just don't feel right about it. I think that's because you pick up on things subconsciously, like the timing of their words. Why did they say this at that moment? Why did they blink faster when they said this? Why did their hand move when they said this? And your intellectual brain, your thinking, reasoning brain, can't contemplate any of these things. It's oblivious to them, really. But some other part of you, looking like kind of Pharaoh now, looking like Tutankhamun, some other part of you can. It can pick up on these things that you couldn't describe, but they're real. It knows them, it feels them. And there are caveats to this, but I decided to just start trying to go, okay, for example, when making decisions, if I initially decided to do this thing, just do it. Because what I've found I have a tendency to do is to think of doing something, like say I'm making a song, I'll be like, I'll put this sample in here. And then I'm like, but if I do this, blah, 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 blah. That second voice is a bitch. Like, most of the time, that second voice is just like a kind of annoying bitch who comes up with reasons not to do things. And very often, if you ignore that voice and follow the first voice, the first impulse you have, provided it's a good one, obviously, not like, I want to look at porn, so I'll just do it. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not your gut. That's like your fucking addict mind, But your gut, or whatever you want to call it, your intuition, like, it thinks of doing things in a certain way, and we very often kind of trample it and go, no, let's think about this. What if I do this? What if I do that? Or if I do this, this will happen. This is bad, blah, blah, blah. And we like trample it. And in reality, it's had a really good idea. It just hasn't overly explained it. It's a quiet voice, it's a strong voice, but it's a quiet voice. So it will tell you things, and it'll go, why don't you do this? Let's do this. And you go, no, I need to think of all the factors. I need to consider this, and this might go wrong if I do this. And sometimes this intuition has considered all of those factors, and many others that you haven't considered in your rush to analyze and intellectualize everything. It has. You know them innately. like, there are things that, for example, ChatGPT can do that are like great and amazing. I use it all the time. I love it. It can analyze all sorts of stuff, and it can produce, like complex analyses of things and research things and do things and produce words quicker than we can. But there's a hell of a lot of stuff that robots are like light years away from being able to do. And obviously with the process of machine learning is exponential, blah, 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 whatever. But for the time being, there are things we can do that are so subtle that they're not even close to being able to do it, and they can't even do a shitty job of it. Like just tiny things like even movement, for example, obviously, but that fluidity we have in our movement, we also have in our perception, in our capabilities of perception. Like when we look at other human beings, we look at their faces, we recognize minute details in their facial expressions that, for the time being, they can't do. And there's other tiny nuances. Like it's the same reason it can't be funny, sometimes it makes me laugh. I sometimes ask ChatGPT to answer me like a roadman, and that makes me laugh. He can be quite funny sometimes. It can be funny. Or not to personify it, I think. That's a whole different kettle of fish, but I think that's something terrifying that's coming in the future is all of us becoming struggling to see the difference between a robot and a living being with a soul. But anyway, those subtleties, those details, like that we see in facial expressions, like in the nuances of how someone speaks. Like in comedy, for example, there are certain comedians and funny people that you kind of know, like if this wasn't your native language, you wouldn't be able to understand it at all. Because there's just tiny details. Not all comedy, obviously, but like most of the international comedy is like Mr. Bean, because it's like, it's not subtle. But like there's certain stuff, you can easily be funny in a non-native language, definitely, and understand humor, but there's certain stuff you'll just probably never quite get unless it's your native language, because they're just nuances and details and subtleties and shades of meaning just by putting one word a few milliseconds later, or shifting your voice down, a fraction of an octave when you say it. Like even now, when you think, I'm not just saying the words like this. There's so many shades of meaning and subtleties and tiny details in what I'm saying. And we do understand all of that. Like we pick up on all of that, and we pick up on that in the world. We pick up on that in situations. We pick up on that in everything. And it's not something you can process and discuss and describe. It's too much information. So you kind of just sense all of it. And there is some part of you that understands all of this. And I think that is expressed through your intuition. And I think it's something that, we've stopped using. We used to obviously depend on it when we were like hunter-gatherers and stuff. You would just go, you wouldn't sit and go, well, you might, I don't fucking know, do I? But you wouldn't probably sit and go, there might be a jaguar here, because you could if you had the time, but you can't analyze and go, oh yeah, well, if you think about it logically, we're in this region of this place, and because of the weather, and sit and talk about it, probably back then, because you see it in people now who live in nature, you will kind of know, and you could maybe explain it afterwards. It's like a footballer. Like, they ask footballers to explain, why did you take that shot at that time? And they go, oh, well, I was thinking, I saw the goalkeeper coming out, and blah, 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 blah. And they describe their thought process, but there is no thought process. I think they did studies on this, if I remember correctly, and they found it's not possible. The way that the speed that your brain works at, it's not possible to have all of those like coherent thoughts in that moment. So it's not like your thinking brain that decides to take that shot or chip the goalie or go around someone. You don't think. You don't go, he's kind of like a slower defender and I'm fast. You can think about that before the match and it can guide you. But you need both those parts of your brain. But in the moment, you just kind of know what to do, or you don't because you're a shit footballer. But if you're a good one, you just kind of know what to do and you do it. And in between action, you might pause and stop and think. So anyway, I've been doing this a lot, and not only that, all of that stuff, but it's also a really useful thing, even when it comes to making kind of arbitrary decisions, just because it's quicker. So I'll be thinking like, my brain will just go, oh, maybe I'll make fajitas for dinner. And then I'll start going, maybe I'll do this. And I'll go, no, you know what? I'll just do fajitas. Because that was the first thing that popped into my head. Why fucking not? Go for it. Unless a really good reason not to have them pops into my head. Oh, I have a fajita allergy, which is definitely real. Then I mustn't have these. Unless a really good reason pops into my head, then I'll just have them. Because I thought of it and it's done. And I don't have to sit around, analysing everything. Like a dickhead, basically. And I've been doing it a lot. Like, when I think of a song, I'm like, oh, I'd like to listen to that song. And I think now, because especially how like sort of spoiled we've become by content and media, you're getting these fucking big dome videos piped into your brain 24/7. Because of, I don't know if this camera's all fogged up. Probably is. The whole video is probably like shit up until now. Not least because I'm dressed like a fucking ancient Egyptian pharaoh, but you get all this content and stuff and you become a bit like, no, I didn't want this, I didn't want that. Like a song will pop into my head, and in the past I'd be like, oh, I don't know. No, I'm like, cool, the song popped into my head for a reason probably. Like, fuck it, bang it on. And then I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm enjoying listening to this song. Whereas my other brain will be like, oh, I've heard it too many times, I don't want to listen to music right now. And I'm like, don't do anything. I just sit there. Like when you go on Netflix and you look through like 100 movies, the first thing you see that you think like, yeah, let's watch that, just put it on. Don't think about it anymore, because you're gonna just spend all day like thinking and analysing and assessing and comparing. Just be like, yeah, cool, bung that on, done. Like, life is short. Games is the same. Like, I'll be like, I'll think, oh, I'm gonna play something, and then I'll be like, just fucking play it. Like, you've only got a little bit of free time. Just fucking play the thing. And yeah, it's been very useful in my work. Like again, not to keep hammering the point home with examples, but like I'll think of doing a certain thing. I'm working on this book at the moment, and sometimes I'll be like, oh, I should work on my book, and then I'll come up with all these reasons not to work on it. Because again, that voice is a bitch. Like, he really is just a bitch. So I'll come up with all these reasons not to work on it, and then I'll just go, no, let's do it. And then I do it, and I'm always like, oh yeah, that was a good idea. I'm glad that I did that. And it's been helping with a lot of things. I'll give you a good example. I went to get my, and I know, by the way, again, your intuition can of course be wrong. Like, I don't believe it's always right. I've had tons of intuitions about things that have been wrong, about people even, where I thought, oh, I don't like this person, and they're all right. It can be wrong, but your analytical brain is wrong all the fucking time as well, and it takes, 500 times as long to come to a decision. I was getting my Switch chipped, well, allegedly, let's say. I don't know if Nintendo are watching. Someone I know. I was getting something done to my Switch so that I could allegedly play whatever games I allegedly wanted to play on it. And for free. It's pretty amazing, honestly. And there were two guys. One was like a bit nearer and one was a bit further away. And I didn't really want to do the drive to the further away one. But the guy who was nearer, I was like, I'm getting a kind of a bad feeling. Not about him. I'm getting a bad feeling about like his level of competence. But then he showed me like he had the chips in stock and he said like all this shit, like, he'd done it before. He was giving me all this detail. He seemed like a nice enough bloke, but I was like, I just have a bad feeling. Whereas the other guy, I had a feeling, and I couldn't have described why. There was just various small details about the other guy that I knew, like, deep down, like, he's better. And I was like, I'm going to go with the guy who's nearer. And as I was doing it, I was like, I'm going to regret this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Anyway, he fucking broke my Switch. He broke it, and, like, couldn't get the chip to work, and the fucking mess this guy left it in, it was unbelievable. Like, it was a state. And I had to take it to the other guy, and he had to take all this like metal out of it. It was, honestly, he sent me pictures of the inside of it. It was fucked. He'd done a terrible job. He was very apologetic and everything. I felt kind of bad for the guy. But I knew I shouldn't have gone with him. I knew it, and I was right. And after that was it. That was why. I'm pretty sure that was why I started doing this. And I started thinking, I knew it, and I should have listened to that voice more. And now that I'm doing it more, it's like a thing I'm practicing, and I'm still bad at it because I'm not used to doing it, because we're not really taught to do it. You're sort of taught to think about everything, and, I don't know. I think like the more we overthink things, often like the less sort of smart we become. Because we think of things through the prism of these sort of artificially created personalities and stuff, whereas your sort of consciousness, just like raw consciousness, is expressed more through your intuition, I think. Probably for all sorts of reasons. So, yeah, that's all really. That's the thing I've been doing that's been not only helping me a lot in life, but saving me a lot of time, and I feel making me a more spontaneous person and making life feel a bit more colourful and interesting and adding a bit more variety, because your thoughts can become very sort of machinistic and like repetitive, and you fall into patterns and everything starts becoming orderly, and sort of you start to repeat the same choices and use the same types of information to come to the same types of conclusions. But doing things this way, I think, yeah, it makes you a bit more spontaneity and gives a little bit of that sort of like spark, magic back to life. Yeah, and I don't claim it's some magical thing. I don't know, maybe it is, but that's not what I'm trying to say, because some people do kind of, they're like, it's kind of like being psychic. I don't really or necessarily believe that that's what it is, but I think it is more down to just all the stuff you just perceive around you that's like smaller details that you can't really put into words or coherent thoughts. So anyway, yeah, that's something I've been trying lately. Hope it's useful in some way for some of you guys. I'm going to get back to my workout now, instead of walking around rocking the king cut look. Well, I will still be dressed like this, but whilst doing a workout instead of talking to the camera. Alright guys, later.